It's one of the most frustrating experiences in the manifestation journey. Doing everything right, checking off all the steps, showing up with affirmations, visualizing before bed, trying to stay positive all day long. And still, the thing doesn't show up. That desire that once felt exciting and aligned now feels distant, like it's just out of reach. And with every passing day, the mind starts to spiral. What am I doing wrong? Why hasn't it worked yet? Is this even real? But what if the answer isn't about what's missing in the practice, but about a misunderstanding of what manifestation actually is? Because manifestation was never about using mental tools to force the world to give something. It was never about trying to get something. That's the misunderstanding that keeps people stuck. The truth is simple and quietly radical. Manifestation is inner fulfillment. It's not the outer thing that creates the shift. It's the inner state that does. The outer thing is just the echo, the effect, the after image. And here's the twist most never consider. The thing being asked for already exists. It's already part of a state, a version of reality that is accessible, not through effort, but through identity. So the moment the desire is dropped as something outside to get, and it becomes something inside to feel, everything changes. The whole direction of focus shifts from lack to fulfillment, from waiting to being. And this shift, this inner grounding in already having, causes a ripple so strong that the physical world must respond. Not because it's a reward for doing everything right, but because it's just a mirror. It was always reflecting the internal experience. So if the experience is still "I need this to feel okay," then the world will keep echoing back that feeling of waiting. But if the experience becomes "I am already fulfilled," then the world has no choice but to bring symbols that match, not to make it real, but because it already is. Every desire, no matter what form it takes, has something in common. It's never really about the object itself. Whether it's more money, a new home, a career breakthrough, or a specific connection, what's truly being sought isn't the thing. It's the feeling imagined to come with it. There's always something underneath, like wanting freedom, peace, excitement, love, power, or security. That's the deeper truth that's easy to overlook. The desire is just a symbol. It points to a state of being that already exists within consciousness. But when the focus stays on chasing the symbol, the real thing that matters, the inner feeling, gets ignored. That's where the cycle of lack begins. Because chasing something outside always implies it's missing inside. And the more something is chased, the more it feels absent. It becomes a never-ending loop of doing, hoping, checking, doubting, and waiting. But the only way to truly shift that experience is to flip it, to begin with the inner state, not the outer outcome. That means finding the feeling now, feeling what the desire represents now, even if nothing in the outside has changed yet. It's not about pretending. It's about remembering that this inner fulfillment was never meant to come from the thing. The thing was just a mirror of that state. And once that inner state is lived from, not for 5 minutes during a technique, but as a way of being, something powerful happens. The outer world starts to reflect that state naturally. Things start to show up. Not because of desperation, but because the inside became settled, complete, aligned. That's why so many manifestations happen after people stop obsessing over them, because the shift to fulfillment has finally taken place. The need was replaced by peace. The chase was replaced by certainty. And life mirrors that. The more something is needed, the harder it becomes to receive. That's the paradox that keeps so many people stuck. It feels like caring deeply should make things move faster, but the truth is that intense grasping energy often creates the exact opposite result. Because when something is needed to feel okay, it becomes a condition for happiness, and that immediately places the power outside. It turns the desire into a problem that has to be solved, instead of a natural extension of one's inner state. That's what desperation really is. It's not love for the desire, it's fear of not having it. And fear is a very different vibration than fulfillment. So even if the words say "I know it's mine," the energy underneath might still be screaming, "Please let it happen." That's why the answer isn't to double down on effort or techniques. The real answer is to shift into embodiment, to start being the version of self who no longer needs to get it because it already feels done. That version isn't checking for signs or waiting for proof. That version isn't overthinking or trying to figure it all out. That version is living, breathing, and moving as if it's already normal to have the desire. Not in a forced or performative way, but in a natural, quiet confidence. Because when something feels natural, it stops feeling urgent. And when it stops feeling urgent, resistance dissolves. That's when the body relaxes. That's when the imagination softens. That's when clarity returns. And suddenly, there's space for the thing to come in, because it's no longer being chased away by the signal of lack. Embodiment doesn't mean acting fake. It means stepping into the truth that the desire has already been accepted on the inside. It means letting the inner experience lead. Because once that shift happens, manifestation is no longer a waiting game. It becomes the unfolding of a state that's already alive. It's so easy to believe that the outside world needs to change in order to feel better inside. That once the money arrives, there'll be security. Once the message comes, there'll be peace. Once the goal is reached, there'll be happiness. But this belief is backwards. The world doesn't cause the inner experience, it reflects it. That's why even when something finally arrives, the high doesn't last long if the state hasn't changed. People win awards, gain followers, buy dream homes, and still feel empty, anxious, or afraid, because the state was never about the thing. It was always about the feeling being generated within. And if that feeling is based on conditions, it will always be temporary. But when the feeling is generated first, without waiting for proof, something powerful shifts. The state becomes stable, the nervous system relaxes, and the world reflects that peace. It becomes a mirror of the inner stillness, not as a reward, but as a natural response. That's how manifestation works. The inner experience leads, the outer symbol follows. It's like planting a seed in consciousness and then watching it grow in the world without trying to pull the roots up every day to check. The state must be planted, watered, and accepted as already real. And once it becomes real inside, the outer picture begins to shift. Not because it was forced, but because it's just reflecting what was already lived within. This is why it's never about waiting for the world to show signs. The signs are just feedback. The real shift is always internal. Once the feeling is stable, the mirror has no choice but to reflect it. It has no power of its own. It only shows what's already true inside. This is one of those truths that can feel a little uncomfortable at first. But once it's understood, everything starts to make sense. No one manifests what they want. Manifestation doesn't respond to wants, because wants always come from a place of lack. They carry the energy of "this isn't mine yet," which keeps the desire just out of reach. What actually shows up in life is always a match to who someone believes they are. It's the identity, the self-concept, the inner assumptions that shape everything. So even when the desire is strong, if the dominant state is "I'm not good enough yet," or "it's still missing," or "I need this to feel complete," then that's what gets reflected. That's what the mirror of life responds to. And this isn't something to be ashamed of, it's something to become aware of. Because once it's seen clearly, it can be changed. The outer world isn't ignoring the desire. It's faithfully mirroring the current identity. And the beautiful part is, identity is flexible. It's not fixed. It's not set in stone. It can be shifted by choosing different assumptions, different thoughts, different feelings, until a new version of self starts to feel more natural. That version already exists. It's not a future creation. It's a state that can be stepped into right now. A version that doesn't just want wealth or love or peace, but already is wealthy, already is loved, already is peaceful. And the more time spent in that inner version, the less resistance shows up, because it no longer feels like something is missing. The desire becomes familiar. It starts to feel like home. And that's when the physical world catches up. Not as a surprise, but as something that makes perfect sense. Because life isn't delivering random events. It's reflecting the identity being lived from. That's why the work is not to want harder or try more techniques. The real work is becoming the version who already has it. Because that version doesn't chase. That version receives. There's this illusion that something is still missing, like one more method, one more sign, one more insight will finally unlock the manifestation. But what if nothing's actually missing? What if the desire isn't stuck or blocked or delayed, but the feeling of already having it just hasn't been fully claimed yet? Not because it's hard, but because the habit of searching keeps the attention outside. The real version of reality, the one where it's already done, already received, already normal, is available right now. Not later, not someday, but now. And accessing that version doesn't require more effort. It requires stillness. It requires honesty. It requires closing the gap between the desire and the self by feeling it real right now. That means letting go of the idea that something outside has to shift first. That means recognizing that the state of peace, the state of joy, the state of having, it's not a fantasy. It's a vibration that can be chosen now. That version already exists within consciousness, and the only thing separating it is the belief that it's not here yet. So the practice becomes simple, feel it real. Not for 5 minutes, not as a test, but as a way of being. Feel the freedom, feel the certainty, feel the ease, not to get something, but because that's the truth of the desire. The outer world isn't waiting to be convinced. It's waiting for the internal acceptance. Once the feeling is accepted as normal, once the energy of already having becomes the dwelling place, the physical world shifts naturally. The symbols show up, the people show up, the money shows up, but none of it is the manifestation. The real manifestation was the inner shift. The rest was just the echo. So the question isn't how do I get it anymore. The real question is, can I feel it now? Can I stop looking for signs and start living from the state where it's already done? Because the moment it's accepted inside, the outside begins to echo it back, not to reward the effort, but to reflect the truth. And that truth is this: nothing is missing. It's already yours. The second you stop looking and start being. Let me know in the comments, what inner feeling are you choosing to live from now, even before anything shows up? Not the desire, but the version of you who already has it. I want to hear what that version of you feels like. Let's speak it into reality together.